Everyone, and welcome to the regular council meeting for Monday, May the 13th, 2024. It is 7 p.m. I'd like to remind all participants that this meeting will be recorded for a public broadcast. With that, I do need a motion to adopt the agenda, please.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Thorne, seconded by Deputy Mayor Gallant. Questions to the motion? No questions to the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. With that, I'll just remind everyone there is conflict of interest declarations in the middle of the table. Please fill that in if there's anything on the agenda that you have a conflict for and pass it to the clerk. With that, let's move on to item number 4, adoption of the minutes from the regular council meeting from April the 8th, 2024. Can I have a motion to accept, please? So moved by Councillor Oblinas, seconded by Councillor Thorne. Questions to the motion? No questions to the motion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. Moving on to item number 2, the adoption of the minutes for the committee of the whole meeting from April 22nd, 2024. So moved by Councillor Oblinas. Councillor Bannister, seconded by Councillor Colwell. Any questions to the motion? No questions to the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. With that, we'll move on to item number 5. You would have all received in your packages some consent agenda items. Do I have a motion to so moved by Councillor Dettori, seconded by Councillor Thorne. Questions to the motion?
I had one quick question. For the candidate,
You do that, you have to.
Yeah.
oh, never mind. It's not a big deal. It was just curiosity. More than anything.
Any questions?
No question. I don't care.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried. Moving on to item number 6, public and administrative presentations. Salisbury Farmers and Artisans Market. With that, you're saying it or?
No,
Susan McLetter from the Farmers Artisan Market. Come forward and love to hear from you.
Yeah. This is my spot.
Yeah, your thought.
Great. I have the
Thank you.
financial projections that were passed out at the farmers market meeting or AGM just a couple of weeks ago. You can look it over. I don't find it one.
Before it's a paper like this.
So you can see from that, so this doesn't include any of the renovations that we did. That's a separate budget. This is our, like our recurring budget of our expenses, everyday expenses that we have every year. You can see we were $9,000 in the black. No, our net income, sorry, was $16,000 in the hole. You can't see it, it's kind of faded out. Yeah, so I guess, and we also have so the farmer's market now that also has a mortgage. Now it had to be sold as part of the agreement for ACOA and RDC funding. But the mortgage is internal. It's from a farmer's market member. So it's a friendly mortgage. So there's also a mortgage payment there that we didn't pay last year just because there was so much money coming in and coming out. It was hard to keep track. We didn't know where we were in our projections most of the time. So our first mortgage payment will come out this year. Our net income. Can't tell if it's negative or positive. I should know that. It says negative.
I think it looks like
16
you,
is a negative.
Yeah.
Yep.
it's
Yeah.
negative.
but it looks like you made money on your actuals and you're just comparing the projected to the actual as negative. Is it? I don't know if I'm reading that.
The
right.
actual is definitely not a
Yeah.
negative.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. I'm not sure what the overboard, but it looks like
It looked like you made $3,000.
Looks like you made $3,200.
So what I was saying
Yeah.
is, we didn't make a mortgage payment, which
Right.
should have been $10,000.
Okay.
So
Sure.
we weren't really over. We have more, we have that $9,000 because the lender is a friendly lender,
Mhm.
basically. But we do, increase revenues, for this year, we've already adjusted our farmer's market fees.
Mhm.
So before, each vendor, the fee structure was set up so that if you sold over $100 worth of merchandise or vegetables or whatever you're selling, you would have to pay $15 as a vendor's fee. There's in a as a vendor's fee, whether you sell anything or not. So we've kind of changed that.
That's pretty fair.
I think it is.
Yeah.
Well, that was decided by the vendors at the AGM, so.
Mhm.
And we have some new vendors there. We haven't done too much in, fundraising this year yet. We've got some new, last year we did a barbecue as a fundraiser for the farmer's market. We've got some new vendors there and they're food vendors, so we didn't wanna compete with them, so we haven't started barbecuing yet. But we probably will before the summer's over. Anyway, the numbers are there. I guess the major change this year is that, the farmer's market is owned by the farmer's market. And, the budget for next year is pretty close to, what the projected budget was for last year. And, we would like to open up the upstairs, but we need about $100,000 in money to bring it up to code enough that we can use it, basically. And that would be an upgrading in the, it needs insulation, so it's not too hot in the summer or too cold in the winter. And it needs an electrical upgrade and a plumbing upgrade to make it usable upstairs. And our projections are that would cost about $100,000. The Department of Agriculture is giving some funding, 50-50. 50% funding right now to farmers markets for plumbing and electrical. So we're still looking for some funding to do insulation, and you would think there would be some insulation.
I thought there was with NV Power.
It is for residential, but there's nothing commercial. or
There's some small
nonprofit.
business stuff out there and there is some not-for-profit stuff out there as well. We have information on that.
Yeah, those booklets.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
that's the same one. I think that one, actually, no, for us, it's because this wasn't a government building, but we can get those booklets. and
Yeah,
pass
yeah,
them
there
in
is
case
something
they-
for not-for-profit, but you are for-profit, so,
No, we're not.
No, they're not.
well, okay,
We're a nonprofit. We're
then you
registered
should
non-
qualify,
We're a co-op, actually.
right, so you should qualify.
Yes, yeah, there's something
I
out
mean,
there. I'm
there's, NV Power has 3 major incentives right now.
I don't know what with NV Power. They don't even return emails.
No, but there, you have to go through the actual,
I've
because
done
it's the
that
same
twice.
thing that we use for energy for windows and doors. It's actually under the same thing.
I've done it.
Yeah.
I've filled out those forms twice for NV Power
Mhm.
and no one ever gets back to me.
Well, maybe Austin can give a push to, yeah.
Yeah, make sure it's the right.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be good.
Anyway, that's all I've got unless you've got
Well,
questions.
I just wanted to thank you for all your hard work, Susan. It's definitely been a breath of fresh air to our Main Street. Hearing, I was mentioning just before this, that, some folks from CCMB from Bathurst were in Moncton today, and they were talking about our farmer's market, and that they wanted to come to Salisbury to visit our farmer's market because they envy what they're seeing online about it. So to have people from northern New Brunswick actually take notice of it is a pretty cool thing, and definitely it's breathed life into our Main Street, and really looking forward to the future and what you'll bring to the downtown core.
Oh, we're working at it, but it's not just me.
It's a good co-op, I get that.
Yeah.
And you know, look at the numbers when you're looking from the projections, and obviously it's different today than it would have been last April.
Yes,
In the vendors that you have a lot of new vendors and a lot of new people coming in, so that'll only continue to grow.
yes, I hope so too. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Susan. And with that, we'll move on to item number 2, Tri-County Ground Search and Rescue with John George, the director.
My name is John George. I'm actually the logistics guy for Tri-County Ground Search and Rescue. Our president is Randy Bro. Right, so we'll kick off. First of all, this is the PowerPoint, right? Okay, so here we are. If you wouldn't mind taking a look. So Tri-County Ground Search and Rescue is a volunteer emergency force, which we do search and rescue, of course. We've been established since 1987. We are currently at 50+ members on paper right now, and we are able to get 20 to 30 people out on most days to be able to go out to a search when we are called. We do put in a lot of hours every year. As you can see right there, we've done 72 for 2023. We did have an average call out over the last few years of about 12 to 14 per year, where we work for the RCMP. The RCMP do reimburse us for our fuel mileage there and back, and they also do allow us to put in expenditures for meals for our people. Equating that all out, it comes about $1.25 an hour that they're employing us for. So we're pretty cheap. We are a registered nonprofit and we are a charity, and we have partnered with law enforcement before to do area searches and stuff like that. Say there's been an incident where a weapon has been used and there's some empty casings possibly in a field somewhere. We would line up abreast and then carry on, look through, fingers going through like you would be going through a Rolodex. We have done wellness checks before, i.e. Christmas. We were called out to go and do some wellness checks for the people that did not have any hydro. And we have done urban searches in the past. The last two have been for dementia patients that have wandered away from facilities. We do also support the humanitarian workforce. And we have done that in regards to Cape Breton, just over this last winter. We do work with EMO and we do work with SARVAC. Austin does have some information in regards to SARVAC and them possibly looking for a maritime hub. So we're might possibly proceed with that. Lighting is not working. Sorry? Yeah.
There you go.
My fault. Right now, our current projects and goals, we have started an initiative where we are looking out to private businesses and asking them for a 3 to 5 year commitment of $1,000 to $1,200 per year to help offset our operating costs. Our current operating costs are hovering around $20,000 per year, which is our insurance, our fuel, a bunch of other things, gear, kit, you name it. Our fundraising, currently our large one, all of the money goes towards our operating costs. So we are not able to properly look after our people in regards to newer gear. So our people are actually having to offset that by buying it for themselves. The average price that someone will put into their gear is anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000. And that's their personal money going towards this, where we work for $1.25 an hour. So it's kind of tight. We have started a multi-year agency exercise with Kujipukwak National Park. We've just completed, as of yesterday, our last exercise. We had the RCMP with us. We were qualifying a couple of their new members to be not search managers, incident commanders. We had members from LC Buktuk, from their Indigiwatch, as well as their public safety. We had members from Miramichi as well that was with us, as well as a lot of the staff from Kujipukwak, getting them ready for their summer patrons. We are looking to grow our membership. You'd think that 50+ people is actually pretty good, but when you're on a volunteer basis, not all members are able to get away from work as quickly as possible to be able to help. So we're kind of stuck in that little loop of getting as many people as we can. The way it goes right now, you need at least 16 people from your group to be able to search on your own without having to call in a mutual aid from another team. Normally, we are pretty good for that, but we hover anywhere from 16 to 25 depending on the day and the time. Let's see here. We did partner with Elsie, and they are positive with the little bit that we have done with them. They are quite excited to be able to work with us and to be able to grow their own capabilities so that they can assist with their own people as well as with us. Because of the fact that they are within the Albert, Westmoreland, and Kent areas. Our big thing right now is we are looking to find an office space and storage area. When we move forward a little bit more, you'll see on the map that actually Salisbury is the epicenter of all of our searches. From this point, we can get the funding, we can move the quack and get to all points in between with a relatively short flash to bang of getting the call and then being there to help out. See here, we are also looking for stable federal, provincial, municipal grants. Currently, we are receiving $2,500 a year from the New Brunswick government, which is
Ridiculous,
Like
yes, yeah.
what we actually should be getting. We are going out to the different counties that we cover and asking them hat in hand. Next page. Hey, yeah. So there, I'll give you lots of pictures to look at. Top left, we have actually some EMTs on our team and he's teaching us some first aid. He does stop the bleeding courses as well as a bunch of other things. Radcom is in our back pocket to be able to help us out when we have coverage problems. They will set up repeaters and different things like that, as well as different frequencies for us to be able to use. You'll see in the top center, that's the RCMP, and the bottom center, RCMP, as well as the emergency manager from Kujipukak National Park. Bottom right, top right would be when we were working at Fundy National Park last year. And the top center or off to the right is, I think that's a Rotary Park exercise we did. Any questions with that? No? So as you can see, you are the center. We have worked in all those areas where you see a blue dot. Any larger blue dot you would see is actually multiple incidents within that certain area. And these are some of our people. If you see top left, that's us doing an evidence search. Bottom right would be, or bottom left would be our membership. Bottom center is actually our equipment that we currently have. We have a Dodge Ram 1500 that was heavily discounted by Moncton Chrysler to help us out because our last vehicle was inadequate. We did get a new cargo trailer from an old contact that I had in Ottawa. They gave us a sweet deal, so we went with it. And then the 5-ton in behind it is our command post. It was purchased down in the States and was refurbished by a TriStar out in Nova Scotia for a pittance of what they should have charged us. Top right would be Cape Breton. Bottom right would be the inside of our command post, and top center, I honestly do not remember where that is. I'll be honest. And that is our motto, so that others may live. Questions?
So, how much space are you requiring? Well, you mentioned,
If you're looking for just an, like a size, it'd be both bays of your fire hall, which is already accounted for.
Mhm.
But it would be about that area, something that we could get the 5-ton in, the truck and the trailer in, as well as an area that we can put shelving for all of the gear that is currently not in use because it's either the wrong season or it's just a stockpile waiting to get put into our cargo trailer. Any other questions, please?
It's not really a question, more of a statement that I just think it's so ridiculous that you're only getting $2,500 from the provincial government. I don't know if it was you and I that had this conversation, but
We've had a couple.
was it you and I? Yeah. I really wanted to find you some space, but I didn't have a high enough door to get your big truck in
Oh, I
at
know.
work, but, I just think that's so
That was the business
ridiculous.
part in Caledonia we talked about?
Yes,
Yes,
that was that place.
I'm coming to see you the next meeting,
Good,
by the way.
Anyway, I just feel like it's ridiculous because you do such great work. Now, my other question was, what's the average age of your volunteers?
So the average age of our volunteers right now is we're looking around the middle 50s, low 50s. We do have some people in their 40s. We do have some people in their 30s, but there's a lot of us that are starting to gray out. It's not the best word.
So is it mostly like retired individuals who
There
are
are a
able
lot
to
of-
get away?
There are some retired people on there. We have air traffic controllers, we have ex-police officers, we have ex-firefighters, we have current firefighters, Steven Stevens, he's on our team.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so we come from all walks of life.
Yeah.
So, but for the most part, I'd say we're about 3/4 that are still currently working and 1/4 that are retirees that are able to do a lot of the heavy lifting on day-to-day operations.
So how do you go about fundraising? Because I'm ashamed to say, I didn't even know you guys existed.
Oh, exactly. And that's the problem with us is we never really put ourselves out there and made ourselves well-known throughout the communities. And this is what we're trying to correct right now. Sorry, what was your question?
Well, I guess how you do your fundraising, because I think that with, there will be a lot of people that when they're taking, X amount of money that they're looking to, put back into the community or for other good causes, would certainly give what you do some serious consideration. If they knew that you guys existed and it was easy for them to be able to do it.
So our current fundraising, our largest one that we have per year is WestJet normally donates 2 tickets to anywhere they fly. With some blackout periods, of course. But that's our largest fundraiser of the year. We can raise anywhere from $8,000 to $10,000 from that because we are allowed to keep all the proceeds. The only outlay that we have in regards to funding is printing the tickets to be able to sell them to individuals. Other than that, it's us hand in hat, knocking on doors, asking for donations, either at events or through the 50/50 raffle draws that are online. You can do it through MBG SARA.
So I know we can't put everything that's out there and promote it. Is there some way we can look at supporting you when you're doing this type of fundraising event so that we can bring some profile, or when we have, let's say, when we're getting together with our residents, oftentimes we'll have some representation there. You guys could come out and just meet the people that are there, or just to make yourselves a little bit more well-known, those types of things that.
And just wrote down block parties.
Block
Katie and I
parties,
were talking about that today.
Party.
Now, we do have a command post that we'd be able to offer to man and help do command and control for the town of Salisbury whenever they're having an event, or if they're in the middle of a crisis where they need some command and control. We do have Starlink, so we are able to reach out and into the cloud. We do have TMR radio, so we can reach anywhere in Canada. So we would be able to support something like that. And if you do have fundraising opinions or options for us, we're always have our ears open.
Well, we always have opinions. That's one thing about us.
And we're good with opinions. We're very good. So we just try to shape the way that we fundraise so that we're not biting off more than we can chew in regards to hours that we'd have to spend doing it. There are a quarter of us that are doing a lot of the heavy lifting, and we're starting to get a little tired. So, our biggest thing would be, we will be submitting paperwork for the Salisbury grant. And we will also be looking for a home at some point. Our vehicles are currently at the Riverview Operations Center. Sorry, I'm a transplant. I'm still trying to remember all the names. As well, once the fire department around St. George Street Fire Hall is done, they're gonna put a large fence line in there, and we're gonna be able to store vehicles there for free, as well as the sea camp. So, anything else, please?
Thank you for all you do. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, you guys do
Thank
a
you.
phenomenal job.
All right, thank you very much for your
Thank
time.
you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item number 7, reports and recommendations from committees and private meetings.
Nothing this evening.
Moving on to item number 8, reports from administration.
Nothing this evening.
Moving on to item number 9, and I know we have something for this evening. Bylaws.
4 items this evening. So our kind of MO to go through these, I'll give council a quick verbal synopsis of some tweaks and changes that were made between committee of the whole. Diane will go over the formal summary and explain the process from a first and. So with that, the first one is dangerous and unsightly premises and property, and there are no changes since committee of the whole. So Diane, I'll pass this one right over to you.
That was quick. So the summary of bylaw number 9, a bylaw relating to dangerous and unsightly premises and property. This bylaw will assume enforcement responsibilities for dangerous and unsightly premises and properties as defined by the Local Governance Act. Pursuant to the provincial legislation of the town is required to adopt the same provisions as the legislation if they assume enforcement responsibilities of this section of the act. The Local Governance Act is available online with the specific section being adopted in the form of this bylaw being section 13 of that act. The bylaw is posted on our website, or will be posted on our website, and is available for viewing during regular business hours on at the town office at 56 Douglas Street. Comments relating to the proposed bylaw must be provided in writing to the clerk no later than May 30th, 2024. As you probably remember, changes can be made up until the third reading. A motion is required should council choose to proceed with first and second reading this evening.
I move that council have first and second reading of the bylaw titled Bylaw Number 9, a bylaw related to dangerous and unsightly premises and property by title only.
Second by Councilor Bannister, second by Councilor Oblinus. Questions to the motion?
I have a question. Some of these bylaws that we're going through, I know that in previous discussions and also in some of the reading, there have been comments made that the bylaws themselves are the same as they were previously. And I think, and I'm just trying to anticipate people who might be asking questions about the bylaws. What I would recommend for any of these bylaws, or if it's the case for all of them, that if the actual bylaws themselves are commensurate with the previous bylaws, whether they were provincial or municipal, that we make a big, huge note to say, this isn't any different than it was before, so that we can direct any inquiries who might think that all of a sudden we've made these big changes to their bylaws, to let them know that, no, actually, it was always this way.
With this one in particular, the only thing that changes is generally changing the province of New Brunswick to Salisbury. This one is pretty much copy and paste, other than changing the word Salisbury. The other ones will go through the changes and we'll make sure that that's clear.
It's a good point.
We got that
Councilor
message loud and
Story,
clear.
just when we go to communicating, but
Because I guarantee you,
Basically.
we're gonna get,
But that's good to know. So basically, we're just adapting the provincial bylaw.
For this one.
Right, for this one.
Yeah.
Into the town of Salisbury.
Yeah.
Meaning
As
it
a
already,
whole.
it already applied to the LSD. the power
Exactly.
LSD.
Everywhere,
correct.
yeah,
It
this one,
applied
yes.
everywhere, yeah.
The difference our residents will see is that we're actually going to enforce it.
Correct, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
because we
Right.
need to have an enforcement officer.
Yeah, there will be a mechanism to enforce it.
Yeah.
There's a
Right.
mechanism right now, which is the province. So, which is basically, yeah.
No, we're gonna do it better. Okay.
Okay, here we go.
additional
we go.
questions? Comments? No additional questions, all in favor? Aye.
Right.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Carried.
So bylaw number 9, a bylaw of the municipality of the Salisbury relating to the dangerous and unsightly premises and property.
Move it, council.
Second reading.
Doing the
Oh.
Second reading is bylaw number 9, a bylaw of the municipality of Salisbury relating to dangerous and unsightly premises and property. So that is the first and second reading by title only. Again, I'll reiterate that the bylaws will be posted online for public access, as well as made available for public viewing at the clerk's office or the town hall. Written objections will be accepted for consideration prior to possible third reading and enactment at the next or future regular council meeting.
Thank you. Moving on.
9.2, the next one is animal control. So there are some tweaks that were made. So I'll go over those before Diane does the formal summary. So to our point that we alluded to and to your question, Councilor Tory, this is very similar to what is in a regulation that applies to the former LSD. So things like dog tags, required vaccinations already exist in the regulation under the Local Governance Act. This is adopting it in the form of a municipal bylaw. The primary change that have been made since it was presented at Committee of the Whole is mainly around references to provincial legislation and changing of words such as shall to may, just to ensure there is flexibility in the circumstance that is presented to us. The primary pieces that I'll highlight are the changes that were made by the MBSPCA, who is currently our animal control service provider under the service agreement that we have for both the former village and the former LSDs, which was already the case and will continue to be. the case. And again, a lot of it is clarification. So the first one is on kennel licenses. So again, that's in provincial legislation. We've added that it's in provincial legislation. We've updated the way essentially that MBSPCA restrains dogs based on their current practices. We've again changed wording from from shall to may in cases around dangerous dogs. And we've also clarified that neglect cases are not necessarily treated in the bylaw. It triggers an investigation under provincial legislation. The only other piece that I'll highlight before it goes to Diane is around the provisions of dangerous dog. So we spoke to that process at Committee of the Whole. And in consultation with MBSPCA and other comparative municipalities, this would be what I would say is most comparable to Riverview in the model. So a neighboring municipality, every municipality does do it a little bit differently, but the main piece is that MBSPCA essentially has said they're not in the business of designating a dog as dangerous. They will present evidence and will be able to be consulted in the process, but they would defer automatically to a judge who will review the same evidence that is presented by them. The provisions for dangerous dogs are intended to enforce what a municipality would like to implement in the case of a dangerous dog, which generally comes from a dog bite. So if we were to compare now in a former LSD, if there were a dog bite, the MBSPCA would automatically go to the provincial court and require that a judge make a decision either to, they word it, control or destroy said dog. In the case of a municipal bylaw, there would be a process where, as opposed to going to a judge immediately, the judge is the appeal process, and there would be a panel that includes a series of representatives from the town, from MBSPCA, legal counsel, and or a veterinarian, which enables there to be a middle ground between a designation and a court appeal. So that's the only other piece that I will mention. Some municipalities do include, similar to the provincial legislation, automatically going to a judge. It's not a frequent occurrence to have dangerous dog designations, but our preference and recommendation at this point is to have that intermediate phase, because otherwise it could get, first of all, costly, and there also would be no appeal recourse without having the provincial court as that final step. So with that, Diane, if you want to go through the summary of the bylaw overall, in addition to those tweaks in this Committee of the Whole, over to you.
Okay, so bylaw number 10, this bylaw will standardize animal control services in the new town of Salisbury boundaries and repeals and replaces the former Village of Salisbury animal control bylaw. The following provides a non-exhaustive summary of the bylaw being proposed by the town of Salisbury. Changes are made to reflect that services for animal control may be provided by outside agencies such as NBSPCA, which are now we have contract with, or the town of Salisbury. In addition to the changes to general provision clauses that will enable the town to enforce some provisions in-house enforcement personnel. The clause prohibiting the ownership and harboring of pit bulls or bull terriers has been removed in the proposed bylaw and would no longer be in effect. Addition of administrative penalties and alignments of updated provisions in the bylaw. This bylaw can be fully read on the website, hopefully by tomorrow, and will be available for viewing during regular business hours at the town office, 56 Douglas Street. Comments relating to the proposed bylaw must be provided in writing to the clerk of the town of Salisbury no later than May 30th, 2024. Again, changes can be made up until third reading. A motion is required if council chooses for the first and second reading tonight.
Recommendation.
Move that council have first and second reading of bylaw titled bylaw number 10, a bylaw relating to the establishment of control of animals in Salisbury by title only.
Moved by Councillor Dykstra, seconded by Councillor Thorne. Questions to the motion?
More of a comment in line with what Joe was saying earlier. We should be very careful with all of these to be very clear in what we're saying. To say, and for this one in particular, we should indicate that there were rules before in the outlying areas that many people probably weren't aware of.
Correct.
So we should highlight that it's not a totally new thing that's being implemented, but
Right.
more of us standardizing what's being done.
We'll probably do that and just so it's clear how council knows how we'll do it, we'll probably do that in the social media post as opposed to the summary.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what it is, for sure.
Because the alternative of, if we don't post like the formal summary, we have to read every single word of these bylaws, which I don't think anybody's in the interest.
Yeah.
Social media, same day that you put this out?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that, I think that's important.
We have to formally post a summary, which is essentially what Diane is reading with the
Right.
links to the full bylaws. That are kind of prescribed in terms of what we have to say and include the dates and blah, blah, blah. But we'll tweak the social wording to highlight that there's limited changes, and maybe we can look at even including a link to the regulation.
I was gonna
to
say.
those things that
Yeah.
already exist.
Yes.
People probably will not be interested in reading provincial legislation any more than they will be municipal
No, but
bylaws.
at least
but
you
it will
put
be
it
there.
there.
It will be
Yeah.
Be there. Like,
It's there for those that. want it.
ideally, we should have that social media piece, the link to what we're proposing,
Mhm.
and then the link to the provincial
Yeah,
legislation.
that's what we would do.
So if you
Yeah.
have all that, then everything's in one package.
Yeah.
And people, if they've got any questions, it's there. I just think for some of these, if we don't do that,
Well, yeah.
you're gonna get tons and tons and tons
Yeah.
of people.
You're gonna get it
think
anyway,
we're
but
gonna-
at least you put it there.
Yes.
At least put it there.
And I really like the changes that you made, like, to the panel. I like throwing a veterinarian in the mix of
That
things.
was
I
really-
think that
yeah.
was really great, really smart.
And it wouldn't be every case, but if, I think the example that I use is if there was a bite or an alleged bite,
Mhm.
and an owner is saying, that's not my dog could never leave a bite like that.
Yeah.
Well, a veterinarian is the person that should be determining if the photos.
Check the
combine-
dental work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Check the dental. It's not that intense, but
CSI.
yes, yes.
CSI
Yeah.
Salisbury.
Yeah,
Yes.
I just think, I think it's smart. It makes sense.
I don't know how you would do it in a post. I'm sure you'd figure it out, but kind of to what they're saying is like having something that says, you know, what's new and what stays the same, or what's changed or what's not changed, kind of broken down in really layman's terms, point blank, so that it's a very summarized, because in this one specifically, we were asked for years to remove the restricted dog breed
Yeah.
bylaw, which that's what this is going to do, but if it's not called out there, that's a positive for this being.
Yeah,
enacted.
and that's a great point, because we have to think it out of both ways. You're gonna have people who would agree with the removing it, but you may also have people who don't agree with removing it.
Yeah.
And if we're not clear, that could be a problem in the future.
Great job. Additional questions? No additional questions, all in favor? Aye. Contrary minded, carried. I'll pass over to the clerk to read.
So first reading bylaw number 10, a bylaw relating to the establishment and control of animals in Salisbury. And second reading by title only, bylaw number 10, a bylaw relating to the establishment of control of animals in Salisbury. And again, this bylaw will be posted online for public access as well as made available for public viewing at the clerk's office or town hall. Written objections will be accepted for consideration prior to possible third reading and enactment at a next regular council meeting.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 3, first and second readings of fire prevention.
So this one, again, I'll highlight changes from what exists right now and what would be in place should this bylaw pass. I'll remind council that at committee of the whole, there was a request to look at essentially density, so properties that are close by. You could have about 1 million different definitions of density. And also if a fire call comes in, they're not going to be looking and measuring a distance of it's just not going to happen. And so logistically, what was determined as a recommended approach is to look at zoning, which already exists, including in the former LSDs. So not everywhere across the province would have a residential zone in former LSDs. We do. So in certain cases, not everywhere. So most of the former LSD is rural area, agriculture, so on and so forth. There are about 5 or 6 existing subdivisions outside of the former village that are zoned residential. There are also subdivisions in the former LSDs that are not zoned as residential because the properties are large. So that was why we went this route. So as a summary, right now today, if you live in a former LSD, you were allowed to burn as long as the provincial requirements or the provincial burn ban permits. A category 1, they call it, is what is a standard traditional bonfire. It's the burning of brush. There's guidelines that there can be a maximum of 4 piles. They can be maximum of 3 meters high. And those requirements are in place right now. Anything above and beyond that, you would require a DNR permit for a higher level category, essentially. That would remain the case in the former LSDs, except for those subdivisions that are deemed or zoned residential. In those residential subdivisions, you can have bonfires as long as the provincial burn ban permits and as long as it's in an appliance, whether it's purchased at a store and put together properly, or whether it's brick, it needs to be an enclosed appliance. So those are the main changes. Other than if you live in a residential area, it does not change. The DNR requirements still apply, and it essentially makes it consistent across the board. The other piece is as it relates to fireworks, which follows the same premise. So in the areas that are deemed residential, under the argument that you're in close proximity to neighbors or other property, they are not permitted unless there is a permit for a display. The permit for a display would look for things like an authorized retailer that will be setting up, could potentially look at having a department on standby, a department meaning members of the fire department, liability insurance of the person who is setting them off, so on and so forth. That would apply in areas that are deemed residential. So think our community days display, when we go through a series of checklists to make sure all those things are in place when you're doing a large display of that nature. If you're not in an area deemed residential, then it is permitted. Again, under the premise that you're not near neighboring properties. So those are the summary of what's changed since committee of the whole, and our approach or recommendation to the concept of density. There's no real other way to do that. So Diane, over to you with the formal summary of the bylaw as a whole.
Oven will standardize the fire prevention in the new town of Salisbury boundaries and repeals and replaces the former Village of Salisbury fire prevention bylaw. The following provides a non-exhaustive summary of the bylaw being proposed by Salisbury Town Council. Bonfires remain permitted in the former village with no changes to the requirements in the former bylaw. Appliances, whether homemade or purchased, are required in those areas zoned residential. This includes the former village and certain areas of the LSD, namely, or the former LSD, namely certain subdivisions that have properties in close proximity. For areas not zoned in residential, mostly from former LSDs, no changes take place, and DNR's fire categories must still be followed with permits as well as may be required by DNR. There are no new municipal requirements other than continuing to require DNR's requirements to be followed. Fireworks are not permitted without a permit for public display in areas zoned residential. They remain required in all other areas, being most portions of former LSDs insofar as they do not cause a nuisance to the neighboring properties. A section of the bylaw regulating the fire department has been included in this bylaw. Administrative penalties have been added pursuant to the different clauses of the bylaw. Again, the bylaw will be posted on our website and will be available for viewing during regular business hours at the town hall. Comments related to the proposed bylaw must be provided in writing to the clerk of the town of Salisbury no later than May 30th, 2024. Changes can be made up until the third reading. And there's a motion recommended, if council so chooses, to proceed with first and second reading.
I'll move that council have first and second reading of the bylaw titled Bylaw Number 11, a bylaw relating to Salisbury Fire Rescue and the prevention and its extinguishment of fires in Salisbury by title only. So moved.
By Councillor Thorne, seconded by Councillor Bannister. Questions to the motion? Councillor Tory.
Again, just from a detail perspective, is there a link for a resident to be able to go to find out what zone?
What they're
they're in?
zoned. I just wrote that down. We didn't have that in the summary, but we will add it. Yeah,
Yeah,
Plan
so-
360 has an
Yeah,
interactive.
I know
Yeah.
I have access to it
Yeah.
from way back when, but I know that most people wouldn't. and they're gonna ask, are we residential or are we not residential?
And it's areas, I should clarify too, like in the bylaw, it spells them out. In the former village, we have a zone, for example, village center. That also, you would need an enclosure. It's essentially zones that permit primarily residential purposes or have a densely populated piece. They're called residential use in the former village, residential area in the former LSD. So they're all spelled out like that, but we'll make sure that the link is included.
Great, thank you.
I just wanna say, I feel like you really accomplished what we were going for
Yeah.
with not have, like, with getting rid of the inside, outside mentality and putting the common sense to the residential, like with the zoning. So kudos to you. It's exactly what I was hoping this would come out as. And in your write-up, it's like, oh, it's odd to have this in a fire prevention bylaw, but I think it's gonna become more common now
With-
because of the LSDs being part of the municipalities.
Yeah.
So maybe we will be the first and we are the stars. So,
Oh,
great job.
And to piggyback on Stephanie's comments, this is, to me, is one of the main reasons I wanted to come to council, was to ensure that some of these things are not blindly pushed on to the rural
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
LSD areas
Yeah.
that do not fundamentally make sense within the context of those realities. And
Yeah.
that I still am somewhat annoyed with this particular one, but I'm happy with how it all played out.
Well, let's stop it right there before he continues with his annoyances.
But it was good the way you spelled it out.
Yeah.
too, Just to term, you know.
And we'll see, there might be headaches, we don't know. Like I'm not aware, maybe other places do it, I'm not aware of other places that do. Maybe it will become a thing. I suspect other places are having similar conversations for that exact
Oh,
reason,
I
like,
guarantee you that they are.
so
This,
we'll,
this may end up being a best practice if there's other
We'll see.
areas that are
or
looking for.
a learning
Or
moment.
a learning moment, and we'll accept it either way. So,
Stepped in it somehow or another.
Is there a way to monetize our bylaws?
There you go.
But that's
No
it from the
questions,
council,
motion.
right?
Well, thanks for the compromise.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's really nice.
No additional questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. Moving on to item. Or sorry,
First
yeah, go ahead.
They're trying to cut you
Excited
off.
there, Brennan.
So first reading bylaw number 11 by title only, a bylaw relating to Salisbury Fire Rescue and the prevention and extinguishment of fires in Salisbury. And second reading by title only, bylaw number 11, a bylaw relating to Salisbury Fire Rescue and the prevention and extinguishment of fires in Salisbury. And again, this bylaw will be posted available online and will be available at the town hall clerk's office for public viewing. Written objections will be accepted for consideration prior to possible third reading and enactment at the next council meeting.
It doesn't have to say in the town of Salisbury, just out of curiosity.
Legal name is Salisbury technically. Is that what you mean? Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Incorporated as a town, legal name Salisbury. It's very confusing.
Yeah.
It is.
It's very confusing.
I don't care.
Very confusing.
Okay, moving on to item
I
number,
could pretend.
item number 4, first and second readings, administrative penalty.
Mostly Diane, pass this one right over to you, as a heads up, but this was not presented at committee of the whole, but comes out of the legal, review process of the 3 bylaws. Some municipalities include administrative penalties, within the schedules of the bylaw as we have. Some of them have an entirely separate bylaw that say if you violate this bylaw, you are subject to an administrative penalty of A, B, C. Some of them have an administrative penalties bylaw that says we include administrative penalties in the schedules of bylaws. In a hypothetical situation, if we did not have an administrative, or if we did have an administrative penalty bylaw and did not include it in the schedule, it gets very confusing. You would have to look at 2 bylaws every time there is an infraction. So essentially, because the legislation does say a municipality shall have a bylaw respecting administrative penalties, legal counsel has recommended that we implement it. And Diane, I'll pass it over to you with the formal summary, but it's essentially a legal logistical element, which is why it wasn't presented at committee of the whole.
Where's the banishment? I don't see banishment.
Or you can banish people.
Well, that'd be like the
That's the harshest.
Or just.
Or just the penalty that let the people, I bet.
Sorry.
Authorized pursuant to the requirements of section 156 of the Local Governance Act, the collection of administrative penalties or fines for contraventions of bylaws. Administrative penalties are specified in each bylaw that has such penalties. Administrative penalties are fines payable to the municipality without requiring formal court proceedings. This bylaw stipulates that penalties are provided in each bylaw, but provides the penalty in the event that an offense is not specified in each bylaw. The bylaw in full can be read at our website and will be available for viewing during regular business hours at the town hall. Comments relating to the proposed bylaw must be provided in writing to the clerk of the town of Salisbury no later than May 30th, 2024. Changes can be made up until the third reading. A motion is required if council so chooses to proceed with first and second reading this evening.
So I can submit banishment as an edit?
It could.
In writing.
I would like to add that, I would like to add that to Brad's mandate, the official town banisher.
Town crier. if you don't care.
I'll make this motion. The council have first and second reading of the bylaw titled bylaw number 12, a bylaw relating to administrative penalties by title only.
Seconded by Councillor Thorne, seconded by Councillor Obelinas. Questions to the motion?
I just think we keep our legal options open. I don't know.
I'm
made
fired
bylaws
tonight.
fun tonight.
Yeah, I enjoy this.
No questions
job.
to the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Three-minded, motion carried.
So, bylaw number 12, a bylaw relating to the administrative penalties in Salisbury, reading number 1. Reading number 2 is bylaw number 12, a bylaw relating to the administrative penalties in Salisbury. Again, bylaw will be posted online for public access as well as be made available for public viewing at the clerk's office or town hall. Written objections will be accepted for consideration prior to possible third reading and enactment at the next regular council meeting.
Moving on to item number 10, closed session, financial 68-1C, Local Governance Act, 3 items. Land 68-1D, Local Governance Act, 2 items. Confidential Government of Canada 68-1E, Local Governance Act, 1 item. Legal 68-1F, and Local Governance Act, 2 items. With that, do I have a motion to enter into? So moved by Councillor Obelinas, seconded by Councillor Bannister. Questions to the motion? No questions to the motion. All in favor? Contrary minded? Now moving into closed. Update. LFP Ridge Drive.
There's a recommendation on the floor. I don't have any
Oh, is
background.
somebody joining or?
No, that's the
No,
recording.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Is that 12.1? Yeah?
Yes.
I'll read that.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll move that council pursuant to the recommendation of the Southeast Planning Adjustment and Review Committee assent to the new location of land for public purpose as shown on the Her Majesty the Queen subdivision plan prepared by Daigle Sur- as it is located at the end of the proposed public street with direct public access and is capable of being used as a public park or playground. So moved.
Moved by Councillor Thorne, seconded by Councillor DeTore. Questions to the motion?
No, like what does this do for us really? It's just.
It's a revised, we have to.
It's just
revise
revised,
the-
right?
Yeah,
Smaller because he changed
change the
the
street
thing.
distance. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
No additional questions, no additional questions. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. Moving on to item number 2, approval of Eagle Ridge subdivision agreement.
I move that council authorize the clerk and mayor to sign and affix the corporate seal accordingly on residential subdivision agreement number 1, Eagle Ridge Drive as revised from the initial approval in March of 2023, and authorize the work to be carried out pursuant to terms and conditions of the agreement.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Colwell, seconded by Deputy Mayor Michael Lance. Questions to the motion?
I'm happy to see this moving forward.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Huge applause on this one. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. Moving on to item number 3, appointment / resolution of the bylaw enforcement officer.
May I read this story?
Yeah.
Back, shall we? Whereas by virtue of the Local Governance Act SMB 2017, C18 and all applicable regulations adopted under it and the Police Act SMB 1977, CP-9.2, council may appoint bylaw enforcement officers for the local government, and a bylaw enforcement officer has the powers and immunities of a police officer for the purposes of enforcing the bylaws of the municipality for which he or she is appointed, as are stipulated in the appointment, but has in no other regard the powers or immunities of a police officer. Inspections. Do I have to say
You
inspection?
can skip that, you don't have to.
Great. And whereas by virtue of section 144 of the Local Governance Act, if the Local Governance Act, any other act, or a bylaw of council authorizes an inspection or requires anything to be inspected by a local government, a bylaw enforcement officer may, after giving reasonable notice to the owner or occupant of the land, building, or other structure, enter the land, building, or other structure at any reasonable time and carry out the inspection. And whereas by virtue of the Local Governance Act and any other act or a bylaw of council, a bylaw enforcement officer may be authorized by council to issue notices, orders, and demands, and any other similar documents as prescribed by and provided for in the Local Governance Act and any other act or a bylaw of council. And whereas section 186 1B of the Local Governance Act SMB 2017 C18 authorizes local governments to appoint fire prevention officers for the purposes of enforcing the Fire Prevention Act and its regulations. Now therefore be it resolved that Brad Doucette be appointed a bylaw enforcement officer for the town of Salisbury pursuant to section 72 of the Local Governance Act, and that they be authorized to enforce any bylaw or any applicable act and regulation and any amendments thereto, subject to a term of office that is stipulated in an employment contract, and any and all amendments thereto. Be it further resolved that Brad Doucette be authorized to carry out any inspection, enter any land, building, premises, other structure, and dwelling or dwelling unit, and take any such action, exercise such power, and perform such duty as they may deem necessary, and as may be set out in any bylaw or any applicable act and regulation, and any amendments thereto to enforce any provisions of any bylaw and any applicable act and regulation, and any amendments thereto. Be it further resolved that Brad Doucette be appointed as a fire prevention officer for the town of Salisbury to enforce the Fire Prevention Act and its regulations pursuant to the act, regulations, and municipal bylaws. And be it further resolved that Brad Doucette be authorized to act for and on council's behalf to issue notices, orders, and demands, and any other similar documents as prescribed by and provided for in the Local Governance Act and any other act or a bylaw of council. So moved.
Well done.
Thank you. Brad, that's the most important guy in the town.
Thorne, seconded by Councilor Tory. Questions to the motion, please? Very exciting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Good luck.
All in favor?
Aye.
Reminded?
Finally official.
Finally official, yes, exactly, that's great, great news.
Let the abuse begin.
I'll get my list to you tomorrow.
Yeah. Moving on to item number 4, Moses resolution, sign easement 6 for the trail documents and sewer easements.
So there's, just because we were asked to start, these are 6 separate resolutions.
Let's go around. this.
Can we just go, what?
Yep.
Yes, yes. Good
I move
idea.
that council authorize the clerk and mayor to sign and fix the corporate seal on the easement forms and associated schedules for PIDs bearing number 00818-971 and 70699-103 in favor of the town of Salisbury as the grantee for the purposes of a 10-meter wide easement for the purposes of a public access trail.
Mayor Gallant, seconded by Councilor Thorne. Questions to the motion? No questions to the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Reminded, motion carried.
I move that council authorize the clerk and mayor to sign and affix the corporate seal on the easement forms and associated schedule for PID bearing number 701511600 in favor of the town of Salisbury as the grantee for the purposes of a 10-meter wide easement for the purposes of a public access trail.
Moved by Counselor Dykstra, second by Counselor Thorne. Questions to the motion? No questions to the motion. All in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried.
I move the council authorize the clerk and the mayor to sign and affix the corporate seal on the easement forms and associated schedules for PID bearing number 00817775 in favor of the town of Salisbury as the grantee for the purposes of a 10-meter wide easement for the purposes of a public access trail.
So moved by Counselor Bannister, seconded by Counselor Dykstra. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carried.
I move that council authorize the clerk and mayor to sign and affix corporate seal easement forms and associated schedules for PIDs bearing number 706-99103 in favor of the town of Salisbury as the grantee for the purposes of the maintenance of the existing wastewater sewer main on the aforementioned property.
Moved by Counselor Cowell, seconded by Counselor Oblinus. Questions to the motion? No questions to the motion. All in favor? Contrary minded? And carried.
I move that council authorize the clerk and mayor to sign and affix the corporate seal on the easement forms and associated schedules for PIDs bearing number 00817544 and 00817775 in favor of the town of Salisbury as the grantee for the purposes of the maintenance of the existing wastewater sewer main on the aforementioned property.
Moved by Counselor Oblinus, seconded by Counselor Thorne. Questions to the motion? No questions to the motion? All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carried.
I move the council authorize the clerk and mayor to sign and affix the corporate seal on the easement forms and associated schedules for PID bearing number 70151600 in favor of the town of Salisbury as the grantee for the purposes of the maintenance of the existing wastewater sewer main on the aforementioned property.
Moved by Counselor Detour, seconded by Counselor Cowell. Questions to the motion? No questions to the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. All of them.
No, yeah, all of
Yeah,
those.
there's no- Okay, so now move on to item number 5, sign RDC funding application for trail.
The recommendation, resolution on the floor for that one too.
I'll move that council authorize the clerk and mayor to sign and affix the corporate seal accordingly on the funding agreement between the Regional Development Corporation and the town of Salisbury for the purposes of funding for trail construction and to complete the work based on the terms and conditions of the agreement.
Moved by Counselor Oblinus, seconded by Counselor Dykstra. Questions to the motion? Questions to the motion? All in favor? Reminded? Motion carried. Moving on to item number 6, June regular council meeting.
I move that council cancel the regular council meeting scheduled for Monday, June 10th, 2024, and hold a special meeting as if required.
Moved by Counselor Detour, seconded by Counselor Dykstra. Questions to the motion?
Our meeting will be on the 24th, right, that month? Like our next,
Committee of the whole. Committee of the whole in June, yeah.
because graduation's on the 17th.
All right.
Okay.
Questions to the motion?
Would it be more productive to have a regular council meeting on the 24th instead of the committee of the whole?
If we need a special meeting, we would try to just have either at the end or at the start, we would start committee of the whole at 6:30 and do a special meeting.
Okay.
If something comes up, there's a couple tender awards that will probably award.
Cancel that meeting? The summer meetings? Wasn't that the one that was?
July and August.
July and
Yeah,
August, okay, sorry.
yeah.
Additional questions to the motion? No additional questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. I want to thank council for a pretty amazing evening. You
Yes.
guys have a lot done tonight.
Yes.
It's a monumental evening, so. Welcome, Brad.
Yeah, it was really good.
As well,
Lots of
so
stuff.
Very pleased by that. But you know, we still have one more motion to go.
Next move to adjourn.
So moved by Counselor Thorne, seconded
Wait,
by
sorry.
Counselor Colwell. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. Good job.